Hello and welcome. It is episode number 33 of the Hilarious Humanitarians Podcast. I am Frances Echeverria, licensed marriage and family therapist.
I am Deanna Silverman, licensed clinical social worker.
And we're here to talk to you today about a topic that involves, well, probably one of the things you're listening to us on, and that would be technology. We're also joined by Jessica. She is a counselor educator who works in the mental health field. Hi, Jessica.
Hello there.
I do like having guests. This is kind of fun. So today, before we start, we want to ask you that you get online if you have not done so already, and be sure to rate and subscribe to our podcast. We certainly do appreciate you doing that. Also, be sure to tell all your family and friends, or just steal their stuff and sign up just like that. We're not above that. That's not unethical, is it?
No, I like it.
Slightly questionable. Also, before we get started, we want to remind you that this podcast is for informational purposes only, does not constitute medical advice, and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please seek the advice of your physician, mental health professional, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a condition. We also, though, do recommend that if you do have need a place to start, NAMI is a great resource that's available online. And aside from checking out NAMI, you can also call 211 from your phone wherever you live to be able to pull up resources in your community if you live in the United States. So, Deanna, you and I were doing some planning behind the scenes and shared a couple of articles with you and with Jessica here that has to do with technology and relationships. Now, you've had significant relationships that have started online?
Yeah, pretty much most of my relationships, oddly, for the exception of the one that it transpired into marriage. It was like, I'm totally for meeting people online, doing it safely.
Of course, yeah.
I did it for years and years and years. And then I eventually burned out from it, and I was like, all right, I'm done with this. And so I ended up meeting my husband actually non-technology way. But I'm not a
old-fashioned way.
The old-fashioned way. I actually called upon that. I said, universe, please send me this, because this is getting a little too much for me.
Did you make a vision board?
I should have.
Now, Jessica, you have an interesting relationship with your relationships online just because of distance.
Right. Well, actually, I'm the opposite. I met my husband online.
Awesome.
We got married. Yeah. So I did the scouting of him beforehand. I done a background check and researched him and made sure he was okay on all the social media. But my family, I'm originally from New Jersey. So my family's the 2,500 miles away. So technology and social media are sometimes the way we communicate. My mom really gets scared a lot of times. Me being so far away, so I always tell her, check my social media before you
didn't disappear.
Freak out. Yeah.
And as we all know, I'm trying the dating thing, which is really gone towards the online part, but that's just kind of how it is. Fun side note is that Jessica has been really useful in helping me search people for lawsuits and see if they're anywhere in the legal system when you're going out on a date with them.
Yeah, I'm really big on if my friends, and I did this too when I was dating, if I would do the same thing as Jessica, and I'm sure Frances does the same. When we meet somebody, it's like vetting them, you're trying to find out as much information as possible. And then even now, if I have friends who are going on dates with somebody they met online, I'll be like, well, text message me their name. I want a picture of them. Tell me where you're going to meet them. I want to know what time. And you need to text message me. Go to the bathroom, text message me how it's going, and then definitely text message me when you're at home and you're safe. I still do that.
Right. And there's that, I always tell Frances, turn on that eye finder so you can tell where they are at what time and really stalking them on their first dates. Absolutely.
She's my Jewish mother.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm totally my friend's Jewish mom. I am Jewish. I'm a mom. It totally works out.
Right. Well, we're going to talk about the impact it has, both good and bad, on relationships today. That is technology. And to the extent, though, where it gets into a little bit, well, not a little bit, where it gets into the scary and the dangerous. And we're going to talk about technology abuse. So as we're getting started on things, Jessica, you've had some training in this. You can kind of give the spiel. What would you say as we're introducing this topic that maybe people aren't thinking about that would be a big red flag in terms of technology on a relationship?
Well, I think And I've worked in the domestic violence environment for a lot of my career so far. So really, it's interesting because the things that start out sometimes that are very cute in relationships, like, oh, they must really care about me. They're texting me all the time and at different hours of the night, tends to go into really that red flag area, or even some stalking behaviors where they begin to use technology as a means of power and control, whether it be texting and stalking at all hours of the evening, calling 42 times, using the Google Voice or GPS location. So that's really, I think technology, we'll talk about probably today a lot of pros, but there is a line where it starts to get really unhealthy into relationship.
Have you ever had any of those situations take place?
In the environment I work with? Yeah. Actually, one of the trainings I went to was with a detective who sat us and trained all the staff on the use of technological abuse. And he talks about some things that I had no idea that could even be done. So even I learned so much knowing that my husband's in technology. And so I feel like I know a lot, but he talked about Google Voice, but he also talked about how you can pull a picture and find out their last location. Mm-hmm. I've heard people use Google Voice. I've used people knowing passwords and being able to get in touch with jobs and, multiple layers of what's happening in people's lives, really for that stalking purpose.
So I thought I was pretty in the know with social media and technology, but you're proving to me right now that I'm maybe a bit far removed. What is this Google Voice? Can you explain it to me? Because I've never heard of this.
So the best thing that I know is Google Voice allows you to come up with a number that's unidentified. It's a random number. So anybody can use Google Voice to make a phone call. So it can't be traced. It can't be blocked because it was a new number. So, you could see something come up on your phone and be like, and actually you can set up some of these numbers to look like there's someone you already know. So let's say I knew my best friend's phone number. And so I know if I'm going to call, their husband, that their name's going to pop up. Well, I can actually program what number I want. So when it pops up on your phone, you think, this person's calling when really it's the maybe offender or stalker that's going on. And so people can utilize these Google Voices to really harass people without being able to block them. Usually you have to get a completely different phone number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've used, on a positive note, Google Voice is useful for if you're trying to have a phone number people can reach you at that, maybe you don't want to give out your personal phone number. During traveling, I've used it because you can connect with Wi-Fi to make phone calls or send text messages. So it's a good way that you can keep in touch with people when you're not in your home calling area, if you will. So, but you can see how it then flips to something that can be pretty scary.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. So here's an interesting thing I learned about on phones. And I learned this because I would go and do different events and things with the radio station. And I would take photos of something I hid and then post it up online, not knowing that data was being shared online that people could access to find out where I took the photo. So for instance, if you go into your settings this is just on an iPhone, and then you go down to, you go to location services, if you scroll to camera.
Okay, so settings and then location services.
Yes. And then camera. You have to put never. Otherwise, when you record, when you take a photo, it is letting you know where that photo was taken. And so let's say you take a photo at your house that you're sharing with somebody you just met online. You take a photo and you send it. It's going to give them, if not, I don't know that it's the exact vicinity, but it's going to give them a location of where you're at taking that photo.
Doesn't Snapchat do that too?
Yeah, you have to go into Snapchat and actually put yourself in ghost mode. If you haven't done that already. Yeah, otherwise you might want to check that because it can pinpoint you to a pretty interesting.
That's why I don't use Snapchat. I feel like I'm slipping into the zone of being too old and not knowing what to do anymore. And it's just too many buttons to press. I can't even find location services on my phone.
Well, the good thing about this podcast is you can go back and hit rewind and go in and find it. But the point being to be aware, because a lot of these apps and things that you have do share your location. So that's kind of a little teaser into our information that we're sharing today. But we did come up with a couple of articles that we wanted to share. And Jessica, having worked in this field and training educators, had seen this already. So one of these articles is from the Huffington Post, and it's talking about how technology is affecting your relationship. Now, this is the first one, and it's the most interesting in my opinion, and that is that social media may literally be changing your genes.
Not the jeans you're wearing on your
butt. Although
like,
it may sell some jeans, but yes.
Yeah, I think especially when I was reading about it, especially in the younger generation, the boomers and the Gen Xers, really have a distance, but the youngins, the millennials, really, you can start to see that the genetic, their socialization is all changing as a result of their technology. And there's a really good book by Robert Weiss on Closer Together, Further Apart, the Effect of Technology and the Internet on Parenting, Work, and Relationships. And he really says it's not necessarily a wrong or bad thing. It's just different.
Right.
And so when people say kids, they may say it out of frustration, like kids these days, you just can't relate. It's because some of the finer intricacies of communicating on social media and the ways that we spend our time, in this one particular study, 11 hours a day looking at your smartphone or tablet, it's going to have an impact. Now, talking about relationships and technology, social media does accelerate relationships. It's so easy to be in touch all the time.
It's too easy, and it's really, I think it's annoying. I get it, and I love it. I love the fact that I can pick up and FaceTime my friend, or I love the FaceTime feature of grandparents that want to see your kid. But I often will just think about, God, where technology has gone, and then how people date, how people have relationships, because things are so moving just at such a neck break pace. And then people want that instant gratification, and it's hard to just disconnect. And then people get all personal about it. Like, you didn't text me back quick enough, or we're just always so available, to everybody. It's just bizarre now.
And then if you change those behaviors, for instance, maybe when you first meet, you're really excited about it. And the reality is you're spending too much time doing it. Now you're getting a little more comfortable, and the messages in between are a little longer. You're like, well, wait, what's going on? You start reading into it too much.
Yeah. I think we're all guilty of doing that at some point, I don't know, man, trying to find that balance is just so important, and seeing red flags when people aren't exhibiting healthy boundaries and always expecting you to be at their beck and call. And I don't know, it just gets really complicated really quick. You can see how fast things can kind of start to unravel if you're not careful.
Also, in terms of online dating, this particular article from Huffington Post talks about how online dating actually delays in real life meetings, meaning that people start creating a relationship through their technological device and not face to face. The technology should be the introduction, but the interactions should be in person, I would think, unless you're living, long distance relationship.
Right. Or that catfishing, if you see the show, right? It's you needing to meet to actually see who the person is.
Well, what's interesting is when I was reading this article, I was thinking, when I was dating in the dating world and doing the online thing, I'm a pretty impatient person, and I like to cut to the chase. I'm a no bullshit gal. I don't want to feel I don't want to drag this out any longer than it needs to be. I don't live in the world of wanting to drag it out and not wanting to meet, because I just want to live in the fantasy of who I think this person might be or what they might look like. And because that stuff kind of feels good. In the beginning, it is fantasy land. And once you meet, it literally becomes real life. And then you have to deal with yourself in front of another person. It could be awkward. It could be hard. The fantasy is kind of over at that point. And you just pray that your expectations kind of meet up with reality. more than likely they're not, and you just have to adjust. I don't know. How are you girls like that? Because like when I was in the dating world, I would like meet somebody and I would just be like, do you want to meet relatively quickly in like a safe way? I just didn't want to drag it out. I don't want to talk to you for months and months and months and months because I was too afraid that they would be catfishing me.
You didn't want a pen pal.
I didn't want a pen pal, right?
Right.
But I totally see why people would want that, or they're just being more cautious because sometimes it takes longer than a few days to figure out who the person might be.
Jessica, how was your vetting process?
Oh, well, I feel like I went on tons of first dates, number one. Some of them awful, some of them okay. But really, for me and my husband joke because typically, actually, I started talking to him and then I got offline. You know, I got busy with work and doing whatever I was doing. And I didn't talk to him for like a month and a half, you know, and he didn't say anything about it. And then I came back and I was like, oh, hey, do you still exist? You know, and I always feel like I vet people through conversation. You know, I'm in the mental health field, so that's what I do all day long. And so I would do my asking of questions and seeing how they responded. And then once I had a good sense of safety, I think, or I stalked them on their social media to find out they were a normal human being. You know, with my husband, it was really quick. Like I felt safe instantly. Like I never felt pressured. And so you can kind of tell with people, right? Yeah. A genuine sense about, I like to talk on the phone. And that would be always the next step, that I'd call them from a blocked number.
And nobody talks on the phone anymore. It's so rare these days.
Yeah.
So your process then was, well, once you remembered he was still online and you went back for round two.
Yeah.
It was pretty quick. Okay. One of the situations I found myself in once was where a person was really good at communicating feelings and conversation via text message, but in person tended to treat me like shit.
Interesting.
Or just didn't know how to navigate that. And so I came to a point where I don't want a relationship with my phone. I want a relationship with a human being. Now, that said, I do realize that like I like hearing, if I'm dating somebody, I do like hearing from them. It's kind of nice, you know, to hear from them in the morning, not like generic, hey, good morning or whatever, and then good night. And that, you know, it's all obligatory. But I think if it feels right, it's going to play out that way. And for me, that's like a way to stay connected without keeping tabs. It's not keeping tabs. It's just, you know, I get up early in the morning. If I'm dating somebody who stays up late, it's nice to wake up in the morning to a message that said, hey, just got home. You know, hope you're sleeping well. Like that's sweet to me. It's not checking in.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like that too.
Now, Jessica, you brought this up earlier. I want to kind of add it in here. You said random phone calls and text messages. Now, when it gets into the kind of stalkerish territory, that is more of who are you with? What are you doing?
Right. And you'll see it like hundreds of phone calls back to back, right? Not, you know, someone goes to the grocery, take a picture and show me that you're at the grocery store.
And that happens for real, which is, it seems crazy, but I think it happens all the time. Oh, well, I have to prove that I'm here. So hold on, let me take a picture.
People oftentimes will present it as like it being playful.
Uh-huh.
You know, and not really seeing the red flags or just kind of chopping it up to like almost, yeah, like I've seen people do this. I've heard people do this. And when they talk about it, it takes on this like dysfunctional perception of like, this is a playful like game or feeling flattered when it's really not normal in terms of boundaries. And
right. There's always that fine line of when it feels cute or feels like this person really cares about me in the initial, but then it's used for power and control, really. I mean, to stalk or, you know, it's funny because me and my husband, we have the locator for the iPhone on, and sometimes I'll look to see where he's at because I think to myself, well, I don't want to call him if he's still on a job, right? But that really can be utilized, and it hasn't in our relationship, but it can be utilized in unhealthy relationships of where are you, following every pattern that you do. You know, I want to know where you're going, a real sense of isolationism, of, you know, being controlled. So anything, I think, like you were talking about, really finding that balance of it can be helpful in a relationship. I don't bother him while he's at work. But on the other hand, if someone flips and goes to more extreme, right? It goes down into that dysfunctional types of relationships.
It's interesting that you just said that, because I was literally just looking at my phone. I have a locator too, and I wanted to my husband and my daughter they made it to the grocery store, and I didn't even know that an app like this existed until we had our child, and I had like a lot of anxiety going back to work, and so I'm like, hey, I found out about this app. And I asked him, like, would it be cool if we downloaded it? Just because if he's driving around with her, I just want to see that they made it to point A, point B. And it actually like worked out. He ended up getting hit by a drunk driver. My husband fortunately was okay. But when he called me and was like, everything's okay, I was just hit by a car, I immediately pulled up that app and was able to like literally see exactly where he was. Didn't we use it? Remember that?
Yeah, when I came and visited, you made me download the app so you could follow my trip down there. Yeah.
Yeah, I had Frances download it because I was like, sometimes like if people get lost, it's so hard, especially if you don't know the area. I'm like, I don't know what landmarks you're at. My point of saying this is like, I agree. If used appropriately, these apps can be really, really, really helpful. I downloaded this app on my grandma's cell phone. She has dementia. I want to keep track of her. But if I were single and I had just met somebody and they asked me to use this app, personally, I would get really creeped out, and that would be a nail in the coffin kind of thing. I'm going to see that as a red flag and walk away. It's just not appropriate as far as I'm concerned in my life. I don't know. It just wouldn't feel right to me.
It doesn't feel right to me either. So, Jessica?
Yeah, no.
Okay, so that's the professional saying no.
Yeah. I mean, I was about to be like, no judgment of anybody else, but I'm like, no, I'm not even going to say that. I'm not that I'm judging. I just don't think it's okay.
I blocked my number from start. You have to earn that. So.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay, so we're going to switch gears here. We were talking about kind of a more neutral approach to technology, but there is an article from goodtherapy.org. It's a blog, and it talks about 3 ways technology can negatively impact your relationships. And in this particular article, it breaks it down, as it mentions, into 3 areas. The first is that intimacy. Now, when we talk about relationships, we're talking about intimacy, both emotional and physical. In this particular article, it's talking about the ways that we're changing our connection, and that includes, to the far extent, sexting, photos, and things of that nature, where you're involved in relationships, maybe not just with your partner, but questionable relationships with other people.
There should be like a law or a rule. Like if you're going to sext, like if you're going to send a nude picture or something, like never, ever have your face in it. Like never. Like, what are you thinking? Like I'm kind of like, it's pretty obvious I've done it before if I know. But I'm like, you know what? I mean, if my boobs are that like distinguishable, I just like never put your face with your boobs in the same picture in your ass. Like, don't do it.
Always make sure if you have distinguishing characteristics, like, I don't know, both of your arms basically sleeved, that's a bad idea too.
Right.
That's the one thing that keeps me from doing it, is because I've got too many markings on my body.
Right. Yeah. Too many marks. I kind of feel like I've entered that zone too, but I don't know. An extreme close-up of a nipple. Like, that's it.
You can just Google that. In this particular article, it talked about a 2014 poll that said that partners often have arguments about being distracted by their cell phone. Nearly 1 in 10 surveyed had argued with a partner about excessive time spent on devices.
Oh, God, I've been there. Hello. Yeah. I had an ex that was like, I felt like I was the third leg. There was a relationship there. It was clearly not with me. It was like him and his phone, and then me. It was pretty awful.
Yeah.
I just don't understand. Like, I've had coworkers who, like, when they're even just, I know we're talking about dating and stuff, but like, I'm just thinking about
just
like
relationships in general, though.
Relationships in general. Like, back in the day, like, I remember in the early 2000s, I went on an interview and this guy looked at his like watch while he was interviewing me. And I was like, I just died inside thinking like that was so rude. Just looking at his watch for a second. He might have had like a legitimate reason, maybe he need to take some medication or something. But I was just, fuck this guy. Like, I don't even want this job. Even if he gives it to me, he's rude. And now forget just staring at your watch real quick. Like, people literally are just staring into their phones while people are talking to you. Like, I can't even get the words out. It just irks me. Call me old fashioned or whatever lame. But, I was over at my neighbor's house yesterday, and like, I'm on social media. Like, a big part of what I do is I'm managing 4 different Instagram accounts. So like, I'm always on social media. But I was over at my neighbor's house and we were having a discussion, and I'm very, what's the word? Like, oh God, I can't find the word. Yeah, of course, I'm very present, but it's like, it's always in the front of my mind of, don't look at your phone. I have a million reasons why I could look at my phone. We're having a conversation. I don't want to be rude.
Have you been in that situation, Jessica, with somebody, either friend, loved one, family member, that you've gotten in arguments over?
Well, for me in my life, initially I would tell my husband, can you get off your phone? And then, so he hasn't been on his phone when we've been out or with friends for like months. But I'm like, he looks at me and like, I think it's really your problem. Because my biggest issue is I have a problem disconnecting from work. Because everything that I have on my phone is attached to work, like people texting me. I'm not on like Facebook or social media. It's just technology.
I get a lot of text messages.
Right. You were saying just we make ourselves so available. Right. And so how to get offline and develop that intimacy. But actually another thought that came into my mind when we were talking about this, and you guys can tell me what you think, but in terms of intimacy, even when you just start dating, like how easy is now ghosting? Because of the use of technology.
Right. Like, you don't even have to fess up to not wanting to see anybody anymore. You just disappear.
Yeah. That sucks. I don't like when people do that. I also get why they do it, but why can't people just be honest, man? Bye. My husband is self-employed, and I actually just joined the family business as of like 4 or 5 days ago. So now it was funny, like leading up to me starting to work with him in our home, I would always be like, can you please put your phone down? Please, like, put your phone down. And now I can see like why he's always on his phone. And so we had a discussion this week where it's like, I get it. Literally, work never stops. And so for business and pleasure, I guess, because I'm on social media, now I'm working with him, like, I have to be disciplined. There has to be a time in the day where like we're just not staring off into the abyss, staring at our phones. Also, I want to mention in terms of like it changing our genetics, like our brain chemistry, as you said, like younger kids, the way we're learning how to communicate and move around in the world. I went to a chiropractor and he was showing me I don't have a bend in my neck. Like, I have a lot of issues with my neck. And he said a lot of people get that because they're looking down, like at a computer or a laptop or their phone. And he's like, I bet you these younger generations, we're going to start to evolve to where like there's no curvature in their neck.
Yeah.
And there is so many problems associated with that. I bet you like when we're old in the retirement home somewhere, like we're looking at like all these people in their 40s and 50s, they're all going to be in bad shape because they're kids growing up just constantly looking down into their lap, and it changes your bone structure.
Absolutely. One thing I was thinking about in terms of in early relationships and dating and intimacy, going back to the point we had just talked about, I've had to have conversations with, because I do get a lot of messages through work and just friends and people. I've had to have conversations with, if somebody, when I'm on it, they're around a lot, that my phone going off or lighting up, that's going to happen, and it's going to happen late at night. And I had to tell my co-host Drew, I was like, dude, you can't, you text me at 11 o'clock at night, my phone lights up with Drew across the top. That looks weird. It looks weird. But these are, the conversations you have to have and be and open about it. But that is the kind of the world we are living in, if you will. This leads nicely into the next point. And that is, we talked about the intimacy, but distraction. It talks about, specifically in this poll, of 453 adults in the United States, nearly half reported being distracted by their phones in the presence of a romantic partner.
Whoa, what's that all about? Yeah.
Yeah, what are you trying to avoid?
Right. I can't, well, even worse, you're just texting each other, sending each other memes. I don't know. Tagging each other online.
My husband and I do that.
Yeah, well, sometimes. I sat at a dinner one night, and I was on like a second date. And I can pay attention to things going on around me, but there was this girl and she was dressed so cute. And there was a guy that was with her and they had gotten some beers and they're having a good time out on the patio. And homeboy was on his phone trying to document the pictures of beer and their date, the guy. And that poor girl just sat there just trying to get his attention.
It is so cringy. What I've seen that too many times. Like, I'm just, next time I see that happen, I don't care if it's the girl or the boy, I'm going to invite them over to my table. Whoever's being left out, like, we're just going to leave the other person with their, like, plate of food or Snapchatting, selfie, whatever they're doing. I'm going to just invite the other person over to my table and be like, yeah, come over here. Let's just have a conversation. Obviously, you're being left out. There's a time and a place. Like, I get it. You don't want to, like, I'm not trying to be the person that's like, screw your phone, like I get it. People want to like Snapchat and do selfies and look at this sandwich I'm eating. But if you're gonna do that, like do it for like a second or a minute. Can we do okay, you get 1 minute, get it out of your fucking system.
Right, you just sit down for dinner.
Yeah, like rapid fire selfies and just going fucking ape shit. And then it's like, okay, now put your phone down and let's talk.
There's an interesting part in this article where it talks about online addiction. And I think, as working in the mental health field, it'll be interesting to see if phone addiction, technology addiction becomes a thing, because I've gone places where I haven't had cell phone service and it freaks me out a little bit. It makes me very uncomfortable. It only freaks me out. I went to go buy strawberries the other day, like at a local farm, and I ran out of the house. It was kind of like, it was my second day of like employment with my husband. You had to leave?
I literally ran out of the house, like screaming, like my hair was on fire, and I brought nothing but cash. It was just my car key and cash. I didn't even have my driver's license. I didn't have my phone. The only thing that I was thinking on the way there is like, well, shit balls. Like, if I get into a car accident, I'm going to be so screwed. This is going to be the day that my tire blows or something's going to happen. But I don't know. Maybe it's just, it's all in like what's going on with your life or the level. Like, when you say that it freaked you out, what freaked you out about not having your phone? Because the only thing that freaks me out is if I need it, if like aliens invade. So many things. What if there's ghosts? What if I call the police?
Mine is when you have to Google something and something's on the tip of your tongue. Yes. Of like, I just need to Google it and find the answer.
Yes, these are real emergencies,
It's interesting that you say that, though, because this article says technology can also be a distraction when it's not in use. When briefly disconnected from their smartphones, in this 2014 study, self-described heavy users indicated having higher anxiety levels than moderate users after just 10 minutes. So
maybe I feel like I've hit my tipping point. Maybe is that like a thing, where like when I started my Instagram page, it was like fun and I'm obsessed with it and I just want to grow it. And now I'm like, I love it, but I've hit the tipping point of like, I'm through. Like, I just want to like watch TV. I just want to go outside, put a blanket on the ground, eat Cheetos, just no one talk to me.
Fully disconnect. It's interesting you bring that up, because the third and final thing that this article brings up is that heavy use of social media has been shown to negatively affect mental health. This University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine examined depression rates in younger adults, finding significantly increased odds of depression among those spending the most time engaged in social media. And this is easy to think about. you know, I love this acronym FOMO, like fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Is a big thing. Right. The sense of life satisfaction not being good enough because you're too busy looking at other people's lives. You know, that one guy that was sitting out on the patio, I'm sure his Snapchat looked great taking a picture of his frosty beers and his cute lady, but he's not even talking to her.
Yeah, you're like performance guy, you know? It's like, who are you on the date for? You or your audience who doesn't care anyway? Like, we're all just like, I'm performing for my digital audience who's going to spend 1 second on my page anyway, and then on to the next guy. And all the while you're neglecting the person that's sitting in front of you who like scheduled time to come hang out with you face to face, and we're ignoring these people. Get our lives together, man.
Just
like,
stop,
come on, guys. By the way, I'm including myself in this.
Oh, yeah.
To everybody. This is like also self-awareness 101.
Hey, you want to know how I'm able to record right now? I've got one kid watching TV and the other one with an iPhone and some headphones. So sometimes it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to change kind of directions here now. And this is where it's going to get a little heavier in terms of being on the lookout for red flags. Now, we've talked about some ways that your relationship can be impacted, relationships in general. It's not just limited to the romantic area, but we want to talk about, and this is kind of where Jessica helps educate people, is where to start paying attention to red flags and when it can get scary and potentially dangerous in terms of the use of technology. Now, you mentioned Google Voice, right? So it's hard. There's throwaway accounts. There, you know, people will create accounts. I know in my situation, I have a lot of people that are listeners and stuff, and I've had some creepy ones. Couple in particular. I won't block those people because at least I know those accounts. If I block them, then I'm going to have to figure out who they are with a different name. Does that make sense?
Yes, you've told me that before. Because
yeah.
I'm like a rapid blocker, and then you're like, yeah, but then you lose track of them.
Right, exactly. So it's like I'd rather have them around so I can creep back on them as well.
Yeah, I understand that. But what if I have like a throwaway account? Like I block them, but I have a throwaway account so then I can creep them from my throwaway account and they don't know.
That's possible. It's absolutely possible. So we talked about the Google Voice and stalking, some of the behaviors through that, and GPS, and being aware of when you're sharing your information. I always, oh gosh, there was somebody I knew that would always quote, check in her big comfy bed. And do you realize what you're doing right now? That's not good. It's not good at all.
Yeah. There was a girl, or is a girl, I call everyone girl. She's probably in her 30s. Like,
hey girl.
Yeah. She's absolutely beautiful. I don't know if she's, this Instagram model. I don't know what these words are. She looks like a model. I'm not sure if she's signed or what. My point is she posts pictures of herself all the time in her house, which is fine. But I could see how her profile could definitely attract some creepiness, okay? Mm-hmm. Very creepy creepers. And I noticed one day that her location was on. There's like a geo map on Instagram, where you can like look at where all her pictures are being taken. And it like, I literally pressed it and it like zoomed into a house. Like that I was able to like Google map and like walk around her street. And so I reached out to her and I was like, hey girl,
do something about this.
Yeah. Cause I'm scared for you.
Okay. So Jessica, share with us some of the stuff you have learned and then have imparted to people to help them have some idea of when to get a little weirded out and be on the lookout for red flags.
Well, we talked about texting. We talked about the GPS, the Google block number. One of the things when I was watching this detective give about technological abuse and safety, he actually at the end of the class pulled out a camera out of a Starbucks cup and being like, basically, I've been recording this group this whole entire time. And he was talking about how you can get like these $10 cameras.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To place in inconspicuous areas. And you would have absolutely no idea. Right. So, and then he went and showed us this website where you can buy them from another nation and they're like $5. You hide them anywhere, and people are using them and setting them up in cars and in their homes, and you can watch them live.
Like a nanny cam.
Yeah, essentially like a nanny cam, but hidden. Right. And then the other piece is and this was really scary to me because I had no idea about this, is the hidden software that you can put in to people's phones, where you install this app and then the app actually itself doesn't show, you can make it hide, but it can track everything that you're doing on your phone. So your bank accounts, your pictures, your email passwords that you just typed dirty in. Yeah. And you wouldn't know. He said the only way you really know is if your battery on your phone all of a sudden is working well, but then starts to use itself over and over, like throughout the course of the day, quicker than it has any other time. And that's because the amount of, I don't know whether
like background activity.
Yeah, that the battery life is a lot shorter because it's using so much, I don't know, Wi-Fi or whatever it is that it's using.
Right.
So it would be a good indicator that someone has maybe installed some ghosted app that tracks you without you actually even being aware that it's on your phone.
Oh, if I didn't know for sure I was single, I'd be so worried right now because, you know, some of these phones, they get older and the battery does start to kind of lose.
Dude, I was just about to say, I've got like 10 stalkers now because my battery sucks. No, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to. You know.
No, well, but it brings
I know this is a serious topic, but
no, that was what I was thinking though. Was like, oh my God! But then I remembered, oh, I was single. I am single. So
you're safe, Frances. You're safe.
Oh man, but it's, you know, that's what I love about our podcast though, is that we can bring up a serious topic and then we bring it back with a little bit of dark humor, because otherwise we're just never going to leave our houses.
I know, seriously. I'm about to be like, okay, so here's what's up, guys. Here on out, on every date you go on, you have a turtleneck on, you have pants on, you're like duct taped into your clothes, you've got a unicorn mask on, you get 30 words. That's it. Nothing personal.
You just park next to each other and keep your windows up and yell.
Walk around with a partition and you just set that shit up, and then yeah, that's where I'm at now.
Anything else that this guy covered? Or
yeah, I mean, he Googled random people's addresses, and then, you know, how you can see on those Google Maps, you can find people's homes. And there's an author, and the name eludes me right now, but he wrote a book about how to keep all your social media and internet information private, because a lot of our homes are on the Google Maps, and how to make those private if you need to. And so people can Google your address. And I've Googled myself. I know everybody probably is Googling.
I'm Googling myself right now. I get really, really excited when I Google myself, and then I realize oh, they got that shit all wrong.
Well, one of the things too is if you own property, your addresses pop up easily.
So the goal is to get super rich and own 700 properties.
Right. But even then you can get on to public records and find out how much if I knew where you lived, Deanna, I can look and see how much you paid for your house. I mean, that's how much privacy can be violated, or exploited or whatever in this day and age. So yeah, to be aware of, you know, what kind of stuff is out there. And then to also, you know, teach this to your kids. It used to be, don't talk to strangers, don't tell them your name. But now it's, gosh, you know, a million times worse. So.
Yeah. And, you know, he showed us and told us about cases about people that were making fake profiles and literally made the exact same profiles so people would think it was that person.
Oh, that happened to a guy I met at a Spartan. He said, good-looking guy. Damn. I mean, if you're going to make a fake profile. Somebody had alerted him to say that somebody was using all of his photos, and this is where it really bugged him, including his kids.
Oh, wow.
And what this person was doing was posing as his fake profile's cousin, and she would befriend these women. She was lesbian. She was befriending women she was interested in with the promise of hooking them up with her cousin. But then she was like trying to meet them and develop relationships herself. Like, and you know what? He contacted authorities, and there really wasn't anything you could do. It was just a fake profile.
Yeah, they need to like harder for people. Like they're just, the punishment I feel like needs to be stronger.
Right. And well, and then it goes into like resources and availability, but it's, I mean, that's like old. And we talked about catfishing. Have you ever been catfished, by the way? Anybody? No.
No.
I mean, I had a situation where somebody pretended to have their life together, and that was a big old fat lie, but it was still the same person.
You know what? Like with the catfishing stuff though, like I'm sure that I could have still been catfished, but like I said, I'm pretty neurotic. And so my friend was subscribed to something. She paid like a couple $100s a year for this subscription where like you literally plug in their name and it would tell you everything. Like there's free sites where it'll like tell you their name, but then it'll block out like the phone number for the exception of like the last 4 digits. This told you everything: arrest history, properties owned, their relatives, pictures that they got, like just a lot of information. And I use that for everybody. Like if my friends went on a date, I'd be like, just give me their name and I'm just in research. And then I would FaceTime the person I was going on a date with. Like I would do a lot of things prior to meeting them that I guess I just got lucky, because by the time they stuck around to actually meet me, I was like, oh yeah, you're the same guy I've researched for 2 weeks. So I was really open about it too. I was like, I'm going to research the crap out of you. My husband, when I met him, even though we didn't meet online, I still did a person search or whatever. And I told him and he was like, good, that's smart of you. You should do that. And he like applauded me for doing it. I guess a red flag would be if I said that and then they got really pissed off and offended. Honestly, my style would be like, okay, then bye.
Right.
I wouldn't want somebody that wouldn't applaud me trying to be safe.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Right. And, all of it really is about figuring out how to be safe. And he talked about that, how to get people safe. And, if you leave a relationship or end something or leave and this, maybe you shared your passwords when you were in it, you don't think the first thing, oh, I broke up, I better change all my passwords. Right. So he says, actually, you need to start thinking about that, changing your passwords. He says, Google yourself. He said, you might want to get a generic answering machine. You might want to change your phone line entirely. You might need to look at your history about going, and there are a lot of agencies that can run whether you have some spyware on your computer, on your phone. He did say like the iPhone was very difficult to crack and break. So if you didn't have the passcode, it's very hard to get in. But he actually showed us how he can crack other phone services quite easily. And so he really was talking a lot about how to keep yourself safe and how to be aware in regards to all this. But I think you have to identify that they're an issue first, that they're a red flag first.
Right.
And then make some of those changes.
Yeah.
As you're doing that, I'm going, you know what? I haven't updated the alarm codes on my house there might be people that have my old codes. I should change that. So I was legit looking at it going, I need to figure this out. But yeah, good looking out on that, Jessica, because apparently I need to change my door code and alarm code. That needs to be updated. Who knew? So as we're wrapping up on it, I mean, I hope we didn't scare too many people, but more of just being aware of that we live in 2018. I almost said 2016. Man, I'm a little bit behind on here.
No, that is not always a bad thing too. There are one of the things we didn't say on the flip side is that social media that they talked about as things that are going well is you really can find a lot of support online on areas that you are totally isolated on. You go on Facebook or what other social media sites or even if you look at your Instagram site, right, it brings people together, whether it's through humor or shared interests, and can really, I think, make people feel connected that otherwise are really isolating.
Oh, 100%. Totally agree. When social media is like used in the way I feel like it's truly intended in good nature, like it's so powerful and really, I feel just super grateful that it's like we lived in a world when it didn't exist, and I don't think we were like really I don't know, maybe I would have needed like more support when I was a teenager, but like when I was a teenager, like AOL was just coming out. And so like to have the experience of knowing both worlds, I am happy I'm living in the world we are today, but you do have to exercise a lot of restraint and safety and just be really, really aware.
That made me think of two things. One is that I work with a lot of people in recovery. And so trying to meet new people that share the same values, or maybe even they're sober as well, online communities can be great for that, for then meeting them in their community. I've also seen families, LGBT families, who have connected with other families in similar circumstances and then create, these friendship circles so that their kid isn't the only kid with two moms, for instance. So that's a great thing. One thing I wanted to mention, though, real quick, when you talk about restraint, there was a conversation that I'd had a while back where I was kind of back and forth on someone, and my friend had mentioned, she's like, well, do you want me to check and see if their online profile is still up? And I was like, no, because if I'm going to start getting into researching and trying to be a detective on somebody, then I can't just ask the question, and maybe I just don't need to be in that situation. So that's that self-restraint and recognizing when your own behaviors become red flags.
Yeah. Good point.
So we invite you, if you have any feedback on this particular topic or would like more information, to please get in touch with us. When we like to wrap up our podcast, we do like to do a little thing about feel-good news stories. And this one, you'll love this. There's a guy, he calls himself the Gangsta Gardener, who believes that masculinity is about being a conscious citizen of the planet. He's determined his name is Ron Finley. He's an LA-based, quote, gangster gardener and community leader who is working to build thriving communities, not machismo, and is really working against this popular stereotype that, you've got to be a tough guy who doesn't talk about feelings and doesn't do things that are tender and caring. And so you can find out more about him and his amazing family, but he is, quote, rewriting the man code. And it was a positive news story that I felt was really awesome.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Now I kill everything I try to grow, even succulents. So there's no hope for me.
Man, it takes like strength and endurance and stamina to be a gardener. I did my own garden and I'm like, God, I am out of shape. I'm seriously out of shape. But it's fun. I like it. In terms of like shout outs, I found a really funny one, some good feedback reviews. I don't even know what this login. I think they just went blah, 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 like on their keyboard.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Didn't share an actual name.
Their review on iTunes, they left us 5 stars. Thank you. They said, when will your dogs be special guests for an episode? I don't even care if they were being like sarcastic, if they were being like serious, whatever. That made me laugh really hard. So you know what? Next episode, join us.
Well, my dog kind of has. If you hear random clicking in the background, it's because it's her feet on the tile, and I'm like, Bella, get out, go lay down. Yeah. So sometimes she does show up. So as we wrap up, we want to say thank you for listening. Be sure to rate and subscribe to the podcast. And if you ever have suggestions, you are welcome to hit us up with those. You can get in touch with us through the Humanitarians Podcast. That is on Instagram. Deanna, you're available as the namesake.
Yes, Hilarious Humanitarian. You can find me there.
And you can find me, Shut Up Skippy, on Instagram, also on Snapchat, where I am in ghost mode because you won't know where I'm at. But Jessica, thank you so much for joining us today and for bringing up some really important issues that we need to think about, both pros and cons for technology and relationships.
Thanks for having me. You guys are great. You really are.
Aww. I know. We should have her around, especially with those compliments. And as we wrap things up, I'm going to go change my alarm code. And
I'm going into hiding. Bye.
We'll be back next week. Thank you.
Bye, guys.